So some things are medical issues and some things are spiritual issues, right? Like some people feel ups and downs in a way that we would expect people to feel ups and downs, right? And then some people feel ups and downs in ways that are more intense than the average experience. Sometimes there are medical reasons for that. Sometimes there's bipolar disorder and there's other sort of things where it has to do with the chemistry of your body, right? And that person should get therapy or get medication or whatever that they have to do. Then there's other situations where it's a spiritual issue, where there is a lack of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that affects how someone is experiencing those ups and downs. So when you trust Allah, and when you really, trusting Allah comes back to knowing who Allah is, right? Because if you know that Allah is Al-Wadud, He's the most loving, He loves you the most, more than anything else in this world. Allah loves you more than your parents, more than your children, more than anybody. You know that Allah is Al-Halim, that He's the slowest to anger. He's Al-Ghafur, the most forgiving. All these sorts of things. If you understand who Allah is, then it should give you some equanimity. It should give you something of an even keel when it comes to life's ups and downs. And that's not going to say that you're not going to feel ups and downs. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ felt ups and downs. Right? He had times where he cried when his children died, his sons died when they were babies. He had times when he was rejected. He was upset at his people. He was upset at being rejected because he knew that he was a messenger. He knew that he had miracles. He knew that this was from Allah. And he couldn't get people, certain people, to see the light. You know, they had the year of sadness, they say, right? 10 years after the mission started, where his uncle Abu Talib died, and his wife Khadija radiallahu anha died. Right? They call it the year of sadness. So the Prophet ﷺ was sad. And then there were other times where he laughed so hard that you'd see his teeth, his molars, you know, like. So ups and downs are part of life, but what you want is you want to be able to ride out the ups and downs and sort of in a reasonable way, right? In a sort of way where it's not causing you to sin. It's not causing you to doubt Allah's love for you. That shows that you don't know who Allah is enough or in the right way, or it hasn't penetrated your heart. Maybe you know in an intellectual way. Maybe you've read something and you understand up here, but you're not understanding down here, right? The Prophet ﷺ, one time, he was passing by, I think it was a graveyard, and there was a woman who was like wailing because one of her relatives had passed away. And he said to her, he said, "Be patient." And she didn't realize it was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. She snapped at him. She said, "You don't know what I'm going through." You know, something very, very relatable to like what we would say. And then the Prophet ﷺ didn't push her. He just left and he went back. But then later she realized who she had said that to. And she felt bad. So she went to apologize and she said, "Listen, if I had known it was you, I wouldn't have said those words." And the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he was like trying to communicate to her, that's not the point. He was like, you know, he didn't say this, but the idea behind it is that you shouldn't be patient just because it's me. So what he said to her was, patience is at the beginning of a calamity, right? So when something happens to you, it exposes you. Your knowledge of Allah, your kind of whole worldview, how much you've internalized your relationship to Allah and Allah's activity in this world, it's like a reservoir. It's like you're putting into the bank, you're putting into the bank, you're putting into the bank. And then something happens and it tests you and it shows you how much you saved up. You know, have you been developing that relationship? Have you been trying to mold your outlook on life so that you kind of understand what this whole world is? Like, this thing's coming, it's a test. You lost this, you failed at that, this thing's not going your way. Allah's just throwing you test, test, test. Do you realize that you're in a game? Or do you think that it's all just, it's going to just ruin your life? Right? So, regretfully, we live in a time where a lot of people, they minimize the medical aspect. They want to make everything into an issue of faith, and that's not true. Like, we can't do that. There are some people who have medical issues when it comes to experiencing the ups and downs of life in an extremely intense way. But we also can't go to the other extreme and make it seem like it has nothing to do with faith at all. No, it also does have to do with faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.